This is your Pain Game podcast, where we talk about the game of living in and with chronic pain and trauma, getting to the heart of how to heal. I am your host, Lyndsay Soprano. On this show, I plan on discussing with doctors, chronic pain patients, holistic practitioners, loved ones, and anybody that is interested in having their voice heard in the chronic pain and trauma world that we live in. So balance, guys and gals. Oh my gosh. I don't know what the hell that word means. I stink at balance. I mean, I'm getting better at it, but we all live such chaotic lives, you know, but I don't have children, but I feel like I have a mountain of children around me all of the time. Some days I feel like I'm walking, or in my case, sometimes rolling on a tightrope, and I'm unsure about what this like mid 40s bullshit that's happening with my bod and how my hormones are kind of a little bit out of whack, you know? And I've gone through every kind of test on the planet. All of these test results come to me and I'm like, I have no idea what any of this means. I have no idea what this actually means to my balance, to my well-being, to my health, to this, to that, the other thing, because everybody's just like, take this test, take this, do that. And then there's no actual analysis behind it. There's no direction. There's no, hey, this is actually why this is happening, Linz. And I know that I'm teetering close to perimenopause. I mean, I'm 45 years old. You know, I've got a few like random skin, fluctuations, for lack of a better term. I'm fortunate that I haven't had to deal with acne in my life. So I'm very grateful for that. But I just don't feel as radiant as I used to. And I know a lot of that is from trauma. A lot of that is from chronic pain. And a lot of that is from absolute sleep deprivation. Because if you've listened to the show, you know I don't sleep. So like for an example, last week, I got a grand total for 7 days, 15 hours of sleep. Not great. Is this from hormones? Possibly. It's for sure a contributing factor. And do these imbalances in our hormones cause chronic pain, or at least contribute to the intensity of chronic pain? Absolutely. So let's talk about it. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce to you my guest today, Megan Bliss. I have like the best last names of people on this show, by the way.
It's like you recruit us or something. Like we got to have good last names too.
Yeah, if your last name sucks, you're not allowed on the show. Yeah, because a couple weeks ago, I had a gal on my show and her last name is Loving, like, hello. And now I've got Mrs. Bliss on here and I'm so excited to have you here. So Megan is a hormone optimization expert and a women's health advocate. And if there's one thing that I talk about on this show, and I will continue to, is advocacy. So this is why we need her. And she also is a lover of horses. And I know that's kind of like a silly, like rando in here, but it is amazing. Horses are such a majestic animal, and their healing capabilities for people, especially in chronic pain, are really awesome as well. So she's kind of got like she's got a bunch of things in her little bag for us. She is a nurse practitioner and fell kind of into this niche market of hormone optimization for women as she just kind of has dived. I think dived is where we're going to go in relation to our body's intricate hormone systems. And I mean, hormones are nuts, man. So here we go, baby. Thanks for being here today, little Miss Bliss. I'm rolling out the red carpet for you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yes, absolutely. I'd like to start talking with you about how you kind of got into this work, because I know you've got a story.
Yeah. So, I mean, I felt terrible in my 20s and I was supposed to be in the prime of my life, and I had gone to grad school. I had gone through nurse practitioner schooling, and I thought I had all the tools in order to help me live my best life or whatever. And I really quickly realized that I did not have nearly what I needed in order to not only help myself, but help the patients that I was seeing on a consistent basis. And I think being a female provider, a lot more women entrusted me in coming to me because we can kind of relate on so many different levels, and so they would come to me and they would tell me how they were feeling. They were exhausted. They felt like they were trapped in a foreign body. They were gaining weight or losing weight and having no idea what was happening there. Their moods were all over the place. And they were coming to me to help them. And I would do everything that I was trained in my traditional schooling to do and look into. And it just was not enough. And then so I started digging, and I knew that I needed more. I needed more resources in my toolbox. And that kind of led me down a functional integrative health approach. And then when the pandemic hit, I was like, I got to take this virtual. Like, we're in a virtual world now. I've got to take this virtually. So that's what I've been doing the past few years, is doing mostly virtual and helping women. And because it took me a while to figure myself out, and then I'm like, okay, it can't take that long for most people. I got to streamline things and figure out a good process. And so that's what I've spent the last 5 years doing, is streamlining everything.
I love it. So when it came to you having like fluctuations in your world and in your health and all of that, what were you experiencing?
Yeah, so I was insomnia, couldn't sleep. So I relate to you on that.
It's such a great party.
Right? That was when my best ideas would come to me, was
Totally.
when I was supposed to be sleeping, but yeah, no. And my threshold with dealing with life in general, like my kids, my husband, just the general stressors in life, that threshold was just plummeting. It didn't take much for me to pop off and be super irritable, be low on patience, all of that. And I know a lot of that irritability threshold has a lot to do with how you're feeling internally. And I'm sure with chronic pain, that, like, the more pain you're in, the less you can handle the excess stressors. And so I was not coping well with the general stressors in my life. I was gaining weight, even though I was trying to diet and exercise. I was, like I said, not sleeping well. My moods were all over the place. And I felt like I could sleep for 15 hours, even though I couldn't sleep. I felt like I could sleep for 15 hours and still never feel rested. So that's how I personally felt.
Yeah. And I completely identify with the insomnia, obviously. Like I said in the beginning, I mean, it takes me until like about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Then I'm raring to go. And I'm like, what the hell? I don't know how I do what I do. And everybody always says, like, I don't know how you do it, Lyndsay. I'm like, I'm not this like amazing person. And in regards to that, it's just, I buckle up and I just make it happen every day. But I am tired of being tired.
Right.
And I think the hormone fluctuation side of me, like when we talk about like our periods and all this as we're getting older and all the fluctuations that are coming with that, like, oh gosh, I'm like, I didn't have a period for 3 years. I was like, sweet, I'm going through this like a badass. Then it came back like a force to be reckoned with. And I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. So when you're talking about bringing on people into your consulting, what do you do for women, and how can you walk us through that process? Because I think that we all are given multiple billions of tests all of the time, and we get our blood work back and they're like, oh, okay. So, everything's actually okay. I'm like, no, everything is not okay. So can you talk to us about that?
Yes. And I know you've kind of done next level testing. You've done the specialty testing and all of that. And I do feel like there is a very good benefit for doing the specialty testing, because it is more narrowed and specific for you personally than if you just do generic blood labs through any general lab, because they're having to look at normal for a wide population. It doesn't matter who you are, your gender, anything like, and so they have to have these wide ranges of normals, and it's not really making you feel optimal. So it's not catching things before they get terrible. And so that's what I like about the specialty testing, is you can really narrow things down and you can really see more specific for your needs. But then, like you said, what do you do with that? And
right.
So that I'll get that a lot. Like, okay, what
so
test
now what?
what test did I ask to be ordered? And it's like, yeah, you can get the test, but if you don't have all of the answers to how to balance that and come at it from a very personalized approach, because some of us some of us will need those bioidentical hormone replacement therapy. Some of us will only need supplementation. Some of us will only need lifestyle changes. And so it definitely takes a very personalized approach for that. But everybody's individual and it can seem daunting, but you can streamline things.
Yeah. And I love, because I always say this on the show and I will continue, and it works in this particular scenario as well, as everybody is everybody. It's you're your own person. Believe it or not, guys, we are all different. And it's one of the things that I've struggled with. And I know that everybody that is on this show, no matter what side it is, whether they're a chronic pain patient or they're somebody that's been trauma, or there's somebody like you that's in the healer department, I call you healer. because that's what you're doing and you're working to heal the body and to help us. And so I appreciate you for doing that. But it's really nuts where you're like, you've got all of these things in front of you. And now what do I do with it?
Mhm.
That's where I'm at. I have done every freaking test on the planet. Most of them are gross because the tests are gross. Like, guys, you have to like dig through your poo. Like, it's gross. It's totally effing gross. But I've done all of it and I have found out some very interesting things about my body. And I am sitting here with all of these results with no game plan. None.
Yeah.
So great. So I did all of this. I spent thousands of dollars because a lot of, especially in chronic pain world, maybe not just as in chronic pain, but anybody that's just dealing with health issues, we spend a ton of money to get answers. And it's really frustrating, like beyond. So how can you help us with those frustration points?
Yeah. So, and that's a big thing that I'm hugely passionate about, because you can have all the lab work in the world, but if that provider or practitioner or whoever you're working with doesn't know that specific lab and they don't know how to interpret it or where to guide you or processes, like what good is it? It's like you're standing there with a key and the door is over there, but you can't get, like, you can't
through the door.
Yeah, you can't connect it to actually get in and do stuff. So, and we all have unique talents and we all should play in the sandbox together. Good. So I think of it like adding a new practitioner or something in your sandbox and allowing them to be a part of your team. Whereas a lot of people are like, one doctor, that's who I go to for everything. And really, we can't be expecting them to know everything about the human body. The human body is so complex. It is so hard to know everything about the human body. So yeah, working with somebody who is knowledgeable about the specialty testing that you are curious about and has processes in place to help you. And that's what I've been building my programs around the last couple of years is having processes that you can work through, and you don't necessarily have to have your a prescription for it or anything like that. So
I call Megan Bliss, Little Miss Bliss. So I call Little Miss Bliss. She's in my phone as Little Miss Bliss now. So when I call you and I'm like, hey, I've got all of these different things, like just even using me as an example, I don't sleep. I've got all of these test results. What do you do for me? Like, how can you walk us through like what your approach is and how you go about it? Because I think that's really important, because as we go for our normal, we go for our mammos, we go for our this, we do our this, we follow all of the things we're supposed to do and we check off all of the boxes. And then we're like, great, I don't have breast cancer and I don't have like, cancer in my freaking uterus, whatever. Like, great, that's fantastic. I still feel like shit.
Yeah.
I still feel like shit. So take me down the path of not feeling like shit. All right.
Yeah. Let's do it.
Let's dig through the poo. Let's dig through the poo.
Right. And really 80% of women are struggling with hormone issues. 80%.
Wow. 80%.
80% of women struggle with hormone imbalances. So for me, that's really where I dive in, is like, okay, if we can get your hormones supported, balanced, and working well, you'll feel so much better. So then you can work on the underlying processes that are necessary for life, because this is a terrible analogy, but here we are. There's nothing TMI here in this space.
No.
I didn't think so. Think about, going back to your stool sample that you were fishing through. Think about you sit on the toilet and you go to the bathroom and you let a big one, and you are in your mother-in-law's or your cousin's home and you go to flush the toilet. You're confident that it's all gonna
it's gonna
go down the toilet just fine, but you turn around and that water is rising. It's like a Dumb and Dumber moment,
Oh my God, I definitely know that moment.
Yeah.
Opening the window.
And it's coming up and you are like, oh, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? So initially we got to shut off the water. Like, we got to shut off the water, get that water stopped so that we do not have an overflow toilet. And so for me, working with women, if we go for the hormones, we can shut off that water. We can shut off that water and get you out of overflow mode, that overflow mode, while we're working on getting the clog out, doing the underground work. and then it's going to flow seamlessly. So terrible analogy, but that's kind of
no,
like,
it's wonderful, especially because I'm seeing her using her hand trying to plunge a toilet in the background, even though I'm just
yeah.
I'm absolutely dead. But I mean that because that's what we all feel like. I mean, we all feel a little clogged up.
Yeah.
I mean, to be honest, like, oh my God. And then we're like, okay, I'll deal with that tomorrow. That's my line. I'll deal with that tomorrow. I'll figure that out later. So when I come to you and I bring you my clogged toilet, well, this just took a completely different turn from blissfulness.
I know.
It's okay though.
That's the end goal is bliss.
Yeah.
That's the end goal.
So when I come to you, what do? You go through all of our test results and then, so what happens from there?
So we start with the identification process. Identify those biggest, scariest beasts that are happening inside you. And yes, I do like to do thorough lab testing, whether it's a combination of blood, saliva, urine, stool. It kind of depends on the biggest beast that we're dealing with. We identify what the issue is. And then we're doing a big root cause analysis, which trauma, that's one of the big root causes of a lot of things. And we look for infections. So we're finding out those root causes. And it's usually not just one thing. It's usually a few things. It's kind of a recipe that is sprinkled together and not making very good cookies. It's not very yummy cookies. So anyways, that's what we got to find that root cause. And then once we've got that identification process done, we know where the big beasts are. We know which ones to tackle first. Then we really go for those. And we're going to strategically supplement, whether that's using natural supplements that you can just get over the counter, or whether something more hardcore like some hormone support is going to be needed, because, and there's controversy about hormones. But if you are lacking hormones are such life-giving. We need them. Every organ in our body needs hormones. And when we are deficient or excess in one of them, it can cause a lot of health issues later on. Sure, sometimes they don't show up, when we're younger, but they can show up later on. Usually the symptoms are there, like the insomnia, the irritability, all of the weight gain, all of that fun stuff. But so then we're going to strategically supplement, and we're going to figure out, okay, how do we stop that water while we're working on the clog? And then we work on the clog, which is going to come from nutrition, movement, stress management, which I know that is so
hate that
much
word.
easier. I know, right?
Management. I don't want to manage it. I want it gone.
Not like we can sell our jobs, our husbands, our kids. We can't really sell all these things.
I mean, we probably could.
We probably could.
It'd probably be a little bit more blissful.
but we got to be able to handle some life. So having good coping mechanisms in life can be helpful, and knowing what works for each individual person. And then we look at movement. We look at the nutrition. We look at what brings you joy in life, because joy is a critical aspect of the whole healing process. And so what fuels your fire, what really ignites your passions. And it's really hard when you feel terrible to even know how to remember what your passions are. So getting that water stopped can help ignite some creativity in finding your passions and all that. And then I really like to empower and teach people how to navigate their lab work without having to have their hands held all the time. So they can navigate their lab work, they can order it, they can do their own supplementing, and they're not necessarily needing that continual help with it all. So empowerment is a big part of what I like to do.
Well, and I like that, the empowerment part of it, because I think a lot of people, and some people need the hand holding all of the time, right? Yeah. Like my sweetie, he needs that. Like, absolutely. Me, I just need like my map, give me my roadmap, and then I'm good. Like, I don't need somebody to remind me and to like, you're doing great, Lyndsay. Like I don't need that stuff. Just give me my map and then I'm good. Right. But I think that as we're getting older and gross, we're aging. It's like
maturing. It's not aging.
Maturing. Thank you. Well, and one of the things that I didn't want to interrupt you, but when you're talking about things that like we don't necessarily know that happen that when we're young, but that's because we don't give a shit when we're young. We're like, the world is our oyster and we're going to be able to do anything. I have been polycystic forever. So I was really, really hard to try to get pregnant, which only happened once and we lost it. But through that process, polycystic ovarian syndrome, it's like, okay, that's been me forever. And I've had multiple surgeries on my uterus and my ovaries. And now I've got, another thing. I've got an MRI that's like, okay, Lyndsay, I did a full body MRI. And so, and because I was like, if there's something going on in my bod, I want to know. Like, I'm going to go after it. And people are like, why would you do that? I'm like, what do you mean? Why would I do that?
Proactive. Be proactive.
Like, shut up. Of course I'm doing it. What's going on with my body? I need to know because I feel like I'm piecemealing here and there instead of holistically treating my bod. And that's one of the reasons why I left doctors because it was just like I wasn't getting anywhere with anybody. And I'd much rather just be where I am than be worse off, which is what I was dealing with when it came to doctors. And unfortunately, we need them to help us order these labs that you talk about and all of that. But that's a misnomer because we all think we have to go to our general practitioner or to our doctor or to our to get some of these tests done. It's absolutely inaccurate. You can get whatever the hell you want to. Granted, there's probably a pretty penny that's put towards some of it. And I know that wholeheartedly how much it is to maintain this bod on a daily. But, for you can order tests for us. That's freaking awesome. Yeah. So you empower us without even like that immediately you empower us by being able to do that. And that's super awesome.
Yeah. I love having a toolbox. Like I was saying earlier, like I didn't have the tools that I needed as a practitioner even. And it was so frustrating for me.
Yeah.
So then when I was able to expand that toolbox, I'm like, let me give that toolbox to whoever needs it and have the manual, the user manual in there too. So then you're not blindly having these labs and have no idea what to do with them.
How do you unplug a clogged toilet with Megan Bliss?
I'm going to make that a training video. No.
Well, it's a legit, it's such a gross analogy, but it's also just totally great because we know the feeling. We know that scary feeling. We totally do, like at a party or whatever. Like, what the hell? Even in your own home, it's scary. It's totally scary. But I'm just tired of being tired. And I know that there are a lot of people that feel the same way. And unfortunately, I feel like a lot of it is women versus men that feel this lag.
Well, what's different between the two of us? Our hormones.
Right.
And the hormone fluctuations. Hormones are one of the most powerful chemical messengers in the body. They communicate with every single organ, receptor site, everywhere in the body. And when we say hormones, there's actually so many different hormones in the body. But when we say hormones, we're kind of thinking the female hormones.
Of course.
You're thinking estrogen, progesterone, testosterone.
You're so crazy. You're on your PMS thing.
You're hormonal.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. If I hear that one more time, I'm going to blow my brains out.
Yeah. But they're not bad. We actually need these hormones. Like I said, they're powerful chemical messengers. They help us reduce inflammation in our body when they're the right balance. They help our neurotransmitters communicate in the brain. They're at those little stoplights for the neurotransmitters. And so when there's not hormones there as crossing guards, things can get all
wackadoo.
Yes. So they are the most powerful chemical messengers in the body. They help us prevent heart disease, diabetes, dementia, all of these things. We have estrogen receptors in our brain, in our heart, in our bones, everywhere. And so we need these hormones. The problem is that we are exposed to a lot of synthetic hormones that mess us up. We're exposed to a lot of toxins in our environment that mess us up. And then when our body is stressed, it's kind of like if you are running from a tiger. If you're running from a tiger, do you need to have reproductive hormones? No, you do not. So it kind of takes away your body's efforts of producing good balance with these hormones when you're under constant stress, because it's going to defer to the life-saving mechanisms. And your body doesn't know it's not a tiger. Your body doesn't know you went through this terrible childhood traumatic incident or adulthood traumatic incident. Your body doesn't know that. It just knows that it's stressed. And so that's where having good balance and understanding what your hormones are, because the symptoms are intertwined. You can have symptoms that they seem like they're the thyroid hormones causing the issues, and it's actually your estrogen and progesterone balance is the issue. Or you can have issues that you think are more insulin related, and it's actually one of your feminine hormones too.
Huh. That's so interesting because like I'm literally like in my head going like, okay, every single woman in my life is going to need to listen to this episode for all different reasons.
Right.
Like all of my girlfriends are all struggling with this, that, the other thing, what have you.
Right. Right. And it depends on the stage. And so that is something that I work through in my programs. Okay, what stage are you in and what problems are you facing? And what are the common imbalances here? I mean, really, hormone optimization should start from before we start having cycles when we're younger.
Yeah.
It's when it should be starting. And really, it's really hard because I'll have like, I went and did a educational seminar at a high school here. And I said, did you know that you don't have to have painful cycles, terrible acne? And they were like,
excuse
what?
me?
It's not normal. And we've been conditioned to think that all of this is just normal, you know? And I said, no, there's a lot you can do to actually help so that you don't experience this. Like having our pads and tampons are terrible, and they're actually making our periods and our hormone balance worse. So that's kind of like the first process I start with these young gals. And then in the whole fertility realm, there's a lot of synthetic hormones that are thrown at women, and that messes with things. And it's kind of like a puzzle piece with hormones. When they go park at the receptor sites, they're supposed to fit in, just like a puzzle. And things are supposed to fit really good. And if you put a synthetic hormone in there, it's basically like putting a flat end where it's not supposed to be. It's supposed to go into that piece.
Yeah, it's like a square peg in a round hole.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, I mean, is it covering the whole? Sure. And is it doing what is ultimately the goal, like achieving a pregnancy, that type of thing, or preventing a pregnancy? Sure. But it's actually not doing all the protective benefits that our natural hormones do. And when you add in that synthetic hormone, it shuts off our natural production of those hormones because the brain's like, oh, I'm getting something. Something's covering that hole. I'm getting something. So I don't need to make any more by myself. So that can happen in the fertility realm. And then in the perimenopausal realm, we have fluctuations. And it depends on what we're exposed to, our traumas, our stress levels, all of that. But naturally, progesterone starts decreasing after the age of 35. And it just kind of depends on where we're at in life, how steep that drop goes and how quickly that drop happens. And it can cause so many things, insomnia, irritability, all that fun stuff.
Like super fun. Super fun. So yeah, so I'm going to send you all of my test results.
Perfect.
And then maybe we do an episode of you going through these so the world knows how jacked I am. But I like, for example, I have H. pylori. I have no idea what the hell that is. I don't know where it came from. I don't know what to do with it. All I know is I have it and people are telling me to drink a tea. And I'm like, I don't think that that's the way I want to roll, is just drink tea for 30 freaking days to try to get rid of this. I have no idea. My doctor, my general practitioner, he's like, well, I'm not going to put you on a bunch of antibiotics because I don't have proof. I'm like, I gave you proof in all of these tests. He wants me to do a breath test. I don't even know what that means. And I'm like, dude, I already have the results. I spent like thousands of dollars on all this. Please just help me get rid of this. But if I was asking for an opiate, he would probably be like, sweet, not a problem. Yeah, here you go. Just take Oxy for 2 weeks. You're going to be good to go. But me, I'm like, I'm trying to get rid of something that's in my stomach and my intestines. And he's like, yeah, no, I don't think so. I need you to come in for further testing. I'm like, fuck off. Like, I have it in front of you. Like, just help me. This is why I'm frustrated. Like, I'm just done. I'm just done with doctors. Unless it's an absolute emergency, I don't want to talk to you guys anymore.
And you're not alone.
So, okay. So when it comes to typically, when it comes to women, and do you treat men as well or just women?
Mostly women, but
because we're so crazy.
Typically what happens is I'm like treating the woman and then she's like, my husband, boyfriend, can we get him some help too? And I'm like, you betcha, let's do it.
I love it because I think that like, even as we're aging, when it comes from a men's department, we're like, oh, well, let's just take medication for ED, right? Like
symptoms suppress.
Right. So So can you talk about that a little bit? Actually, I'm actually all of a sudden very concerned about this topic.
More specifically, the ED.
He's going to kill me. Yeah.
Okay.
He's going to kill me.
Very common in men. And
Right.
it can come from a lot of different hormone imbalances, even. Too high of cortisol can cause it. Because if you are not in more of a parasympathetic, like relaxed state, do you really think that's going to work down there?
Probably
No,
not.
You do not need to make babies if we are being chased by a tiger. And that's how men make babies. So that is one of the aspects is you're in this stressed state. So there's one aspect. Then there's testosterone. Men start going through andropause, just kind of like women at 35 with progesterone, it starts taking. About 35 is when men's testosterone starts going down. And that can either plummet really fast, depending on the environment, trauma, all those root cause stuff, or it can be a slow, steady decline, which is better, which is what we want is a slow, but there's methods to naturally support a prolonged testosterone production, or there's bioidentical testosterone that can help maintain stuff. So
you're so wonderful.
Hopefully I'm providing a happier sex life for couples all over.
All over the world. Yeah. Well, and because in all sincerity, and I want to circle back just to this is the Pain Game podcast, and we talk about trauma and we talk about pain, because when it comes to pain and trauma and hormones and stress and all of the things that we're talking about, that is just with chronic pain in general. I was reading after you and I did our meet and greet, I was Googling about hormones and chronic pain. I was like, holy shit. Yeah. That is nuts. That has never been freaking talked about with me or anybody that I know in the chronic pain world that I'm in about hormones.
Two of the best symptom improvements are going to be energy and pain reduction are two of the most common things that I
Wow. See. I love that so much. So I'm sending you all of my stuff.
Perfect.
We'll go through my toilet bowl on another episode or something. But I want to leave our listeners with, well, I'm going to have you leave our listeners with, but we need to, and I'd say this all of the time, we have to be our own advocates. We cannot just get blood work and be like, everything's groovy. If you don't feel groovy, then you're not fucking groovy, right? If you don't feel good, there's a reason. So don't just say, oh, well, my blood work all looks great. Well,
and you can't be told, oh, everything's normal too. You've got to, because it can look normal to one person and one provider, and it's not looking normal to somebody else that has a little bit more trained of an eye to see something. And if you're not feeling good, there is always something that you can be digging in and finding, in my opinion. And so for me, it's always, sure, this might not be your biggest issue. Let's keep digging. Let's keep going and let's keep trudging forward. And if you're not feeling good, there's a reason.
Thank you for saying that, because there are so many of us that feel hopeless and feel like there's just, I don't want to make another doctor's appointment. I'm not doing it. I literally have a list of places that I should probably be calling, of a rheumatologist and a this and a that. And I just avoid the list because I know what it's going to end up being. It's going to end up being me in the same exact place, just even more frustrated. And
you're waiting months for an appointment.
Yeah.
You're going to be told, it looks fine, or here's a medication.
Yeah. Neurologist is telling me that there's no pain in my legs. Really? Bite me. So anywho, okay. So we have to jam. So, okay, a couple different things. We've got her website, which is meganbliss.com, exactly what you would expect it to be spelled like. And she's on Instagram, of course. So Insta is Megan Bliss NP, like nurse practitioner.
Yes.
And then there's a hormone symptom checklist that you told me about.
Because a lot of people are like, oh, I don't know. Are my hormones? Yes. 80% of women's hormones are terrible. It's likely some hormone issues. But if you're unsure, I've got this checklist at checkhormones.com that you can go through and be like, oh, okay, maybe it is worth it.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm going to definitely do it because I'm actually really wow, I'd be very interested in it because I've got my girlfriend's I've got thyroid issues. I'm like, do you? Do you not? That's what the doctor is telling you, but do you really have hormone issues? And that was one of my girlfriends that popped up into my brain when you were talking. But So what do you want to leave our listeners with?
I just want to really back to the empowerment, like don't give up on yourself. If you are feeling it in your heart that there is something going on, don't let one provider tell you, oh, you're normal, or it's not worth it to check hormones, or you're just hormonal and there's nothing to do about it, And if you're feeling it on your heart that there is something deeper going on, listen to your heart and you're worth it. And you should just be able to live a life you confidently love.
You're so great. That is such a great way. I mean, seriously, that is it. And I have a girlfriend, Shannon. You're listening because she listens every Tuesday when they drop. My girl, Shannon, you totally needed this episode and I love you. You are exclusively invited to share this hormonal VIP pain journey together. Let's get to the heart of how to heal with you by my side. Please follow the Pain Game podcast wherever you digest your podcast content. We will be there. Visit us at thepaingamepodcast.com and follow us on all the socials. Thanks for listening, my little VIPs. Catch you on the other side.